Growing up in love requires responsibility, not deflection, not living with an avoidant behavior, clinging to every outcome, but simply growing into taking responsibility. I got Bible for this, so just hang with me for a second, because 1 Corinthians 13, verse 11, is the background to 1 Corinthians chapter 13 as a whole, talking about love. You know, love that reads, love is patient and kind, love is not jealous or boastful or proud or rude. It does not demand its own way. It's not irritable. It keeps no record of being wronged. It does not rejoice about injustice, but rejoices whenever the truth wins out. Love never gives up, never loses faith, is always hopeful and endures through every circumstance. That kind of love. That kind of love is something we all say we want, but you cannot reach that kind of love until you reflect the attitude that Paul shares right in verse 11. When I was a child, I spoke and thought and reasoned as a child. But when I grew up, I put away childish things. Paul, in the smallest ways, without having any kind of therapeutic language that we carry today, he does something beautiful here. He acknowledges the child he once was. He acknowledges the child that he may have once carried. He acknowledges that when he was a child, he spoke, thought, and reasoned as a child. The expectations that he had were childlike. The way he talked, the way he argued, the way he defended himself, the way he communicated, the way his thinking patterns were shaped, all reflectant of a child. And yet it is when he grew up, he put away childish things. Where does this growing up take place? Well, I would have an interesting thought that in 1 Corinthians 13, the evidence of him growing up was his ability to love patiently, his ability to love kindly, his ability to not be rude in his love, the ability to love in a way that doesn't demand his own way, loving in a way that doesn't remain irritable, loving in a way that doesn't hold grudges against other people, holding up their offenses and wrongdoings against them, using it as weapons to get the upper hand, loving in a way that rejoiced when truth wins out, when truth was stabilized, when truth was uncovered, when truth was expressed. A love that did not confuse long suffering with abuse. A love that did not fail to take accountability. A love that we all say we want, but oftentimes are unwilling to do the work to actually live in. And if we really want to grow up in love, there is a child in you that, if you have not put enough time and attention to heal, has actually been running the relationships that have come and gone in your life. And if you're not careful in addressing this child, in addressing the immaturity, in addressing the unhealed wounds, in addressing the neglect, in addressing the attachment styles, in addressing how your parents didn't show up for you in a manner you needed them to show up for you that would have put you in a better position in your adulthood relationships. If you don't participate in a level of applicability with verse 11, you cannot actually live out verses 4 through 8. So my encouragement to you, in order to grow up in love, is to simply, one, be honest. Take an inventory and just analyze emotionally, mentally, spiritually, where you are, who you are, what you're doing, and how you're feeling. Be honest about all those things, because honesty is the first step. It's the first policy. And without doing such, you actually can't even begin to regulate anything emotionally. Secondly, you got to get into a pattern, a rhythm, a routine of nurturing what you went so long without. And I'm not just talking about the things that maybe you didn't have access to and you were neglected of. You were real coddled, right? You were real protected. Parents were looking out for you in the best of ways. I can relate. And yet there were some things that you didn't have recollection of, you didn't know how to do. Talking, communicating through conflict was never something that you learned how to do, because in your home, it was always a child stays in a child's place. So being able to defend your answers or being able to communicate how you felt without neglecting and minimizing the emotions of another isn't regular common speech for you. And so we have to be willing to nurture these things. And by nurturing them, what does that look like applicably? Well, we got to get into some routines of journaling, meditations. We got to get into some routines of just simply being present with our bodies, grounding ourselves every day in thinking, in breathing, in really allowing ourselves to be present in today. But then we also have to be willing to invest in our healing. Where's some coaching, some counseling, some community, perhaps some therapy if you can grab that, right? What are some people that you can put yourself around that are able to pour into you to such a degree that are able to help you process these things healthily, be a place of containment, also giving you advice, also being a listening ear, right? The community, all these things, really helpful, really helpful. But above all, is simply taking responsibility for what belongs to you. Even though you are not responsible for the hurt that was caused to you, you are responsible for the healing you must participate in to move forward. And if we don't take on that responsibility, we will remain a child, speaking, thinking, and reasoning as a child, instead of growing up, putting away childish things, and loving in a more complete manner that always starts and ends with all of these things included, looking at the cross. Because without the cross, such a love is not even comprehensive. And such a love actually is no longer seen as a glorious invitation. It's actually seen as something that is detrimental to our transformation. So I want you to take this with you. Growing up in love, are you willing to take on that challenge? Do you really want the love you say you want? Do you really want the marriage you say you want? Do you really want to know what it's like to love in a manner that reflects the heart of Christ? If so, these are the things worth considering. Because without it, child in you that has remained neglected, wounded, unheard, unseen, unvalued, misunderstood, the neglected wounds that you've been carrying will continue to push out healthy relationships and people out of your life. And it won't have an end to it until you start taking responsibility for it. I hope this made sense. If it did, type "caught it" in the comment section below. Follow for more as we continue navigating through healing, doing relationships the right way. We start with doing the healing work on ourselves first, which oftentimes looks like understanding biblically what it can look like to grow up from a childlike position, learning to take responsibility moving forward, so the inner child in us that may have still been wounded doesn't control relationships we create moving forward now with a more transformed, renewed mind.